Marketer of the day, number 446. Attend the right networking events, lay the groundwork for better joint ventures, land clients, become a connector, and follow up with Lori Saitz. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're talking right now with Lori Saitz, and her website is at ZenRabbit.com. And Lori launched the Zen Rabbit Baking Company and introduced to the world the gratitude cookie. And in order to build that company, Lori had to overcome her hesitancy to talk to strangers and learn how to network effectively to find clients and referral sources. And today, as a networking strategy coach and speaker, she worked with quiet people on getting past the fear of networking, on managing their energy, and feeling more comfortable connecting so they can find success. So all kinds of fun stuff to talk about. How are things, Lori?
Things are going fantastic. How about with you?
Better than ever. Can't complain. All kinds of fun stuff. So I can definitely relate to some of the things we talked about in your bio of kind of being shy or just not really feeling like dealing with people sometimes. I think I might be one of those introverted extroverts where sometimes I kind of tend to hide in the cave, but then other times when I put forward some effort, I can be social, I can break out of my shell, and it seems like this is a really common problem, really common thing.
It is, and actually up to 50% of the population is introvert, if you want to use that term. I use the term quiet people because there's not as much baggage attached to it. Sometimes people take introvert as a negative term. I personally look at it more as a characteristic, like having blue eyes or brown hair. But quiet, I think a lot of quiet people may be intimidated to go into networking situations. So that's what I work with them on.
So are there specific things that people are nervous about? Like, are they worried about being rude or saying something stupid or saying the wrong thing? Are there specific fears they have, or is it all over the place?
Of course, it's individual. Everybody has their own things that they might be apprehensive about, but the most common things are not being prepared. So quiet people tend not to like to be put on the spot or to be called on when they don't know the answer. So it's a matter of feeling comfortable with what are you going to say. For example, almost every business networking situation, somebody's going to say, well, what do you do? So it's a matter of having an answer prepared so that you can answer that question and not have to come up with a rant, something on the spot to say, and not being caught off guard. So I think that's one of the biggest fears, is being caught off guard, not knowing what to say. And then also the fear of not knowing what to do. How do I start a conversation? How do I approach a group of people and find someone to talk to? What if nobody talks to me?
Okay, so basically have a few of those scenarios ready. So be prepared to talk about what it is you do, have like a conversation starter, I guess, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I look at networking as having three parts. What do you do before you go to an event? What do you do when you're at the event? And then how do you manage the post-event, the follow-up part? And so in preparing before you go to an event, it's coming up with the answer to the inevitable question of what do you do, and also choosing strategically which events would make the most sense to go to. Don't stress yourself out going to events where the people that you want to meet aren't going to be, so focus where you put your time and your energy, and strategically plan which events to go to. That's the beginning part. Yeah. And then once you're at the event, how do you approach a conversation? How can you take control of the conversation and ask more interesting questions? So another thing that quiet people tend to not like about networking is that the conversations are very superficial. And so if you can take control and make it more interesting by asking more interesting questions of your conversational partners, it becomes easier and more enjoyable.
Okay, great. Well, we have some interesting stuff to unpack here. So first of all, so you're saying when there are events to be attended coming up, that it's important to narrow down the best types of events for you. So how does someone go about cracking that problem?
It starts with figuring out who are the best people for you to meet. And that's not always going to be who are your best clients, although it could be. Who are your best, who do you need to meet who could become a client? But also, who need to meet who could be a great strategic partner for you or a referral source. And so once you are clear on who those people are, then you look at the events and say, are those people likely to be at these events? You can't always know, but you could know if you're looking for school teachers, for example, they're probably not going to be at a Chamber of Commerce event, for example. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so basically, so instead of just looking for whatever events are right in front of you or in your industry or near you, look at what that target market is and then look at where they will be attending, so that way you can put yourself in front of them.
Exactly. And you get to use your energy more efficiently that way, because networking for quiet people can be draining. So you don't want to be going to 15 events in a week. If you can pick 3 or 4 or 2 that are going to bring you the biggest benefit because you're going to meet the most qualified people there, then that's what you want to do.
So is there an ideal number of events for you to attend, or is there an ideal frequency? Because I know that these days I probably attend maybe 2 or 3 events a year, and years ago I'd probably attend 1 or 2 events a month. So do you think there's like an ideal amount, or is it a matter of trying different things and seeing what you like, or what are your thoughts on that?
It is a matter of trying different things out, because you don't necessarily know who's going to be at an event or how well organized it is, or how how well you're going to connect with the people there until you go. So I recommend going to a bunch of different events. Again, strategically, I think my people will be here, so I'm going to go to this event and check it out and see, go from there. As far as how many different events to go to, it really depends. Some people, 1 a week is plenty. Some people can do 3. It's about managing your energy. So if you go to 4 events in a week and you feel completely drained at the end of the week, like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to make it through the next day, then maybe 4 is too many. And however many it is for you, be okay with that. Like, don't beat yourself up because I can only go to 1 a month. Whatever it is, it is. And I think when you're talking about going, are you talking when you say 2 or 3 a year, you're talking about conferences, bigger events?
Yes.
As opposed to like a monthly luncheon or something like that. Yeah. Yeah. And that's we can talk about how to manage the bigger conferences. It's a little bit different animal. But as far as going to, like, let's say a monthly association breakfast, I would go 2 or 3 times to really get a feel for it. You can't always tell right just from going to 1 event. Sometimes you need to go a couple of times, meet people. When you go back the second time, now you know a couple people, and maybe they can introduce you to some more people. And so it kind of builds on itself. You can't always make a decision about whether a meeting is a great venue for you on the first visit.
Yeah, I like that a lot, because you might have that particular time you visited, like you yourself were kind of had your guard up, or you yourself were already had all these things on your mind. So that's not a very good judgment of it. And it might have been that maybe attendance was low, or maybe the people that happened to be there weren't the people that you needed that time, or like you said, you guys knew a couple people, and then when you go in next time, then you're more well known. And so that's great stuff. And so along the lines of going to these events, or at least like being prepared, like you've been saying, we mentioned a couple of times that it's important to have the answer to that question, what do you do? And I really struggle with this, because sometimes I've tried like listing a couple of keywords, like I'll say I do like WordPress and membership sites, or I've tried that template people say of saying, well, I help this type of people do this kinds of thing. So what are your thoughts on having that answer ready for what do you do?
Yeah, I like the idea of I work with financial professionals or financial advisors to do X, Y, and Z, and the way they benefit so that they can, or the way they benefit is so that people get a clear picture of how you serve the world. What value do you bring to the table is really the question they're asking when they ask, what do you do?
Okay, great. So I should revisit that template. I should say, like, I work with coaches and business owners to set up their podcast so they can reach more people, build a list, and make more money, or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you can add a story of how short, if somebody says, oh, that sounds really interesting, and you can add a story of how you helped a particular person, that helps cement it in the person's mind of even more, because we're naturally attuned to storytelling. Storytelling is goes back centuries of human, for humans. That storytelling part really cements, makes you more memorable, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I like that. You can hook them with a story, and once the story, you don't want it to be too long, but once you say a couple things, they want to know how it's in. They want that little loop to be closed, and then when you're talking up this case study, it's like you're bragging about someone else. It's like you're bragging about someone else on the surface, but in maybe as a secondary, you yourself are bragging, but it's not as show-offy when you're talking about a client or something.
Yeah, you're giving a concrete example of how you worked with somebody and what result they got from that.
Cool. Well, great. So go to these events that you should be going to. Be prepared with the answer to the question, what do you do? And anything else that people should have ready to go as they're about to attend these local events?
A lot of times events will list who else is going to be there on their website or on the registration page. And so it's a good idea to go and take a look if you can and see who else is going to be there. Maybe do a little bit of research. Look up some of the people on social media. It's so easy to find people now. To type in their name, pull them up on LinkedIn or find their website and just find out a little bit about them so that you can go to an event if you don't know anybody and you can say, oh, I'm going to look for this person because I want to talk to them about this article that they wrote that I saw posted on LinkedIn. It makes the conversation a little bit easier, makes you feel a little bit more comfortable if you're looking for someone specific once you get there, as opposed to wandering around the room aimlessly.
I like that a lot because the person and that's kind of taking what you said before and drilling it down and making another level deep, because it's like, well, I'm going to this conference to meet this type of people, but I'm doing a little bit of research beforehand to really drill down. Well, there's that type of person, but now there's a couple of specific people I can go after. And this is a really great lesson, a really great reminder, because the thing that I've been meaning to do the last couple of events I've been attending. I'm attending some stuff maybe a 2-hour drive from me, and there's mostly new people every time. And what I've been doing a lot of times is I've been going to these events and exchanging business cards and saying, like, do you want to be on a podcast? And that's kind of my in with them. And then I've been meeting a couple of these times to, like, one was like a 3-day event, and I actually looked up the speakers, and I did a little bit of what you said. I looked up the speakers and what they were talking about and their backgrounds, and I had meant to set aside time to email them before the event, but didn't get around to it. And then I went to the event knowing a couple of people just based on their names or their faces, which was okay. But then I set up the podcast interview afterwards, but I thought later on that, geez, if I had planted that seed before the event, and then I meet them, and then I follow up after, that would have been an unbeatable combination, as opposed to, like you said, going there without really a plan, which I would have had more of a plan if I'd taken some action before the event.
Yes, and you just mentioned a great point that I didn't say, but thank you for bringing it up, is if you can, send them an email beforehand or, some kind of communication. If it's through Twitter, tweet to them, hey, I see you're going to this event. I'm going to be there too. Look forward to meeting you. Something to kind of do a little bit of an introduction before you get there. And then once you're there, finding them, because then that will put them in a position to maybe be on the lookout for you as well.
Yeah. I like that. And so when you work with these clients, do you hear any of people like worried that maybe they're trying too hard or that they'll come across as a stalker? Because those are definitely the thoughts that came to me. And that was maybe part of the hesitation of not reaching out to some of these people. And then looking back in hindsight, I was like, it wasn't stalkerish at all. But for some reason, just there was some weird negative self-talk in my head talking me out of it. So do you hear any of this of people saying like, well, I don't want to be that aggressive with my networking because I'll come across this way? Do you ever hear that?
Yes, all the time. And I turn it around and say, how would you feel if someone sent you an email and said, hey, I'm going to be at this event and I was on your LinkedIn profile. I saw you wrote this great article. I'm really eager to discuss it with you.
I'd
kind
love
of
it.
flattering, right?
Yeah, someone cares about me.
Yeah, someone's paying attention. So I don't think it's stalkerish at all unless you dig really deep into their personal life, maybe. I mean, you could go there, but I don't think an initial search on social media and finding some, it's out there. It's easy to find. So yeah, reaching out ahead of time is really more flattering than anything.
Okay, great. So yeah, so it's you're reaching out, you're being thoughtful, you're not going too deep beneath the surface, you're not, friending them on Facebook or liking their kids' photos or anything like that.
Exactly. You're not showing up at their front door. Hey, need a ride? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So do all that stuff before the event, and then you mentioned go to the event and if you're worried about just the mundane same old stuff, everyday conversation, then take control and steer things in more of an interesting way. So what does that look like?
It looks like better questions. So what do you want to know when you're in a conversation with somebody, more interesting than what do you do? So let's say you go to an event and you're in a conversation, inevitably somebody's going to ask you, what do you do? But once that question has been answered, because it doesn't really tell them anything about who you are or what you can say, like a good question if you're at a conference, for example, would be like, have you been here before? What did you get out of it? How did you enjoy it? Obviously you came back. Or what are you hoping to get out of being here today?
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Who are you looking to meet? Or some other good questions, depending on how the conversation is going and how you're connecting with the person. If you can get into, have you read any good business books lately? And I'm a huge proponent for literacy. So if I can get into a discussion about books, I'm really happy. But the same thing could be said for, podcasts. Have you listened to any good podcasts lately? And now that depending on the time of year, are you looking forward to the holidays? Where are you going? You can get into a little bit more personal, certainly not too personal, but when it comes up, what are you doing for summer vacation, or what are you doing for the holidays, the spring break, whatever it is, you may be able to turn some of that into it. I've heard people ask the question, again, it depends on who you're talking with, but, what do you give a damn about?
Awesome. So that way they can bring up their cause or things like that. And I think I like a lot of these questions, and especially the questions of like, who are you looking to meet, or what are you looking to get out of this event? Like, they might have not thought of that before coming across with you, or if they think about it on the spot, it's like now they've set up what the problem and the solution is. And then now if you are the kind of person that can help them with that solution, now you have an in with them. Or if you have been speaking to someone else at that same event who can solve their problem, now you're kind of a connector. So these are great. There's all kinds of ways to get in with these people, and for the conversation to not quickly die out like with some of those too simple questions.
Exactly. You're looking for ways that you can be of service to them.
Yeah. Well, and so do you have any pointers on making that connection happen? So like, you meet with them, it almost sounds like dating, but like you meet them and you have the conversation, and then, you want to give them your business card or get their business card or get an appointment on the books or something like that. Any pointers there as far as bridging the gap between just random small talk and either wrapping things up or getting some kind of deal hammered out?
Yeah, I would always ask if you want the person's card, say, can I get your card? And exchange cards. I like to take notes on the card too, because I don't always remember every point. So, so I jot some notes on the card. If you are having a great conversation and you want to continue it, you could say, I would love to continue this conversation. Can we set up a time to grab coffee, have a Skype call, whatever makes sense? And if it also makes sense to both pull out your calendars and pick a time right there. Otherwise, you can say, I'll shoot you an email. We'll set up a time and do it either there or as part of your follow-up.
Okay, great. So set up a time if it makes sense, if there's something that comes up in the conversation that you want to talk about soon instead of just letting everyone forget about it. And then I also like that idea of writing on the business cards. That's something that I'd forgot. Like, there was a story I heard years and years ago, and I'm not sure, I assume it's true, about George H.W. Bush, the older one, and he was really good about the follow-up, and he'd meet someone and then write a word or two on their business card right then and there to jog his memory a little bit later. And then he, super busy being the president and the vice president before that, but I think he just wrote like 4 thank you cards a day. But 4 thank you cards a day times 365, I mean, it's no time at all, no matter how busy you are. And at the end of the year, that's all kinds of extra follow-up just from a couple quick things, writing on the business card and then making sure to crank out X number of thank you cards a day. Is pretty cool.
Exactly. I love the idea of sending, I call it a nice to meet you card. It's more difficult now than it has been in the past because people don't necessarily have their snail mail addresses on their cards. And sometimes it's hard to find because people work out of their houses now. So sometimes it's hard to find it. But it's fantastic. It sets you apart because so few people are doing it. And if you can't, then shoot them an email or connect on LinkedIn. And my advice for connecting on LinkedIn in terms of networking is always include a message, because even if you think they are going to remember you, say they might not. So it was great talking with you at this event. Love to connect with you here on LinkedIn and stay in touch, whatever. But do that. That's part of the follow-up.
Okay, well, great. And I'm excited to jump in and unpack the follow-up section in our last few minutes here. So, and by the way, so you say that a lot of people don't have their snail mail address on their business card. Is it a good idea for us to have the snail mail address on the business card? That way, if someone wants to send a nice to meet you to us, we're able to receive that?
It's a matter of how comfortable do you feel putting your address on it. My card personally does not have it because I do work out of my house, but somebody could potentially find it by not too difficultly find it by searching online. So if it's not on, again, it's this stalker versus finding the information. If you can find it, if it comes right up and it's not on their card, but it comes right up on, a chamber website or somewhere that they have a listing, then great, go ahead and send it. If you have to really dig to find that email address, then that's a little weird, or that mailing address.
Yeah, if you have to go on like the Secretary of State website or buy a paid search or something, maybe it's crossing the line.
Right. Yeah, don't do that. That's weird. But yeah, so it's just a matter of how much information do you want to put out on your business card. And if a phone number and an email address and a website address is enough for what you're doing, then that's great.
Okay, and so you meet someone at an event, you strike up this conversation, you chit chat about this and that, you write down a couple things on their business card, maybe you set up something at the moment, but either way, there's that time for the follow-up. So you said that you can send a nice to meet you card, you can add them on LinkedIn. Anything else that we should be doing after we meet someone at an event and make a connection?
Yes. So let me reiterate, follow-up is the most important part. And maybe it's not a reiteration. I assumed that we were talking, but that is the part, whether you're a quiet person or not, is where most people fall down, is in the follow-up, because we all have the best of intentions. And how many people come back from an event put the business cards on their desk and say, I'm going to follow up with those people tomorrow. And then 500 emails later, client, work project is on fire, and pretty soon 3 months have gone by, and now you have a huge stack of business cards on your desk that you've done nothing with. So then why did you bother going to the events in the first place? So it's a matter of setting a time in your calendar. If you're setting a time to go to an event and you're writing it in your calendar, at the very same time, put in when you're going to do the follow-up.
I like that a lot.
So that, yeah.
So that you actually get to it as opposed, because that scenario you just laid out where 3 months later you have the stack of business cards. It's like, well, now there's no way they remembered me because I don't even remember them. I don't even know which event some of these people were from. So might as well just put these in the trash because leads have gone cold. So we set time to go to that event and then set time for that follow up. And do you have any guidelines on what that should be? Should it be like a couple of days after getting back, or the day we get back, or like a time block of an hour, or what do you usually set?
It depends on your schedule. So ideally, it doesn't have to be within 24 hours. It could be. I mean, it's nice if you could do it within 24 hours, but I would say you have up to maybe 10 days. You can set your own you can take your own liberties with how long you want to take. But I would say between 1 day and 10 days. But it's what does your schedule look like? So when you're setting in your calendar, I'm going to this luncheon on Wednesday from noon to 2, at the same time, write in follow up on Friday afternoon between 3 and 4 or whenever. It shouldn't take you more than an hour to go. If you're going to one event, a conference might take you longer. If it's a multi-day conference, follow up would be a little bit longer. But an after hours, a breakfast, a luncheon, something like that, you really aren't going to need more than an hour to do the follow-up. And in that follow-up, I would include the writing a follow-up email or note or whatever it is, reaching out to them on LinkedIn, and adding them to your CRM system.
Well, great. And I've heard some people mention that sort of thing, like put them in a CRM system. So can you explain to us what that is and what that looks like and what that accomplishes?
Yes. So CRM stands for contact relationship management. Some people refer to it as a client relationship management, but contacts is more broad. And there are a million different ones. So for example, Insightly is a type of contact management system, or Infusionsoft, or what do you use?
I don't use one. I'll put people into a Google Sheet. I know that my business partner, I think he uses maybe Highrise to do it.
Yep, that's one.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are a million different ones, and they all have different capabilities. So you might need to do a little bit of research and just figure out what would work for you in terms of what you need. But very basic. I personally use Insightly, and they have a free version. And right now that's completely sufficient for me. So you can type in the information off of their card along with any notes, and you can put tags. I like to tag people as far as where I met them, which I also include on their business card. When I write my notes, I write down what event it was and what the date was of the event on the card. And then I will transfer that also to the notes section of my CRM system. And the benefit is that you can look for people. You can search, do an online through your CRM system and find them. A lot of the CRM systems also, Insightly has it. It connects to LinkedIn. So like you can see their it has what am I trying to say? It has an interface with it.
Okay. So great.
Yeah.
So you can really easily figure out their location, their website, their niche, their skill, all that fun stuff. Their other friends.
Yeah, and put all of that in there. And then the other thing I like to do with it too is I can put a tag on it. For example, like financial services. So if I'm looking for somebody because I want to refer them or I want to share their information with someone else, maybe I don't remember their name name, but I'm looking for a financial advisor in Vienna, Virginia. So I can do a search and then I'll find them that way because you don't always remember people's names. You
Right.
just remember I remember I met this guy and he does this and yeah.
Well, super awesome. So that builds your Rolodex for you. And so after you put these people in your CRM, in your database, what's the additional follow up look like? Because I've heard of some people adding some people to a list or sending out like a snail mail letter once a month for 3 months or sending out some extra emails or things like that. So do you, on an ongoing process, keep following up with these people that you meet at these networking events?
Yes, that would be the ideal. So you can, and that's one of the other great things about a CRM system is you can set tasks. So once you put them in, you could set a task, for example, to pop up a reminder in 3 months or 4 months or however you want to set it to reach out if you haven't been in touch, if you haven't seen them at the next month's luncheon, to reach out and say, hey, how's it going? Just checking in, or I came across this article, thought you would be interested. It just reminds you to stay in touch with them. If you have a monthly newsletter, for example, I would not add people to an email letter or an email list without their permission because that is technically spam. But you could ask them if they would like to be added. And if you are mailing something in the USPS mail, you don't have to ask them if they want to be added to that kind of newsletter.
Okay, awesome. And do you do any of that fun stuff where you send them a Christmas card or you get their birthday and you send them stuff on their birthday? Because I'm wondering, well, we build this database and maybe send out a few things quickly, but are there things that we can do maybe a year later or 2 years later if we have this huge database and we say, I haven't contacted them in a while? Any advice on that?
I love the idea of sending a birthday card if you have that information, because everybody loves to have their birthday acknowledged for the most part. And so few people do it. You can do it on Facebook and that doesn't really require any effort. But if you get a card in the mail, that makes you stand out and differentiates you from everyone else. The Christmas card, holiday card thing, I'm not a huge fan of those because everybody else is doing it. So you don't stand out. Again, it's about maximizing your visibility. Like if you're going to do it, then do it in a way that strategically makes sense. So maybe you send, I was going to say a Valentine's card. I like doing those with clients because you could say, I love my clients, and that's not weird. But if it wasn't somebody that you had a business relationship with necessarily, it was just an acquaintance, that might be weird. But there are so many other different holidays and special event days. Like Flag Day is June 14th. I don't even know why I know that. But you could send something, in honor of Flag Day. I'm reaching out, just send a card with a flag on it or something. May, I think it's May, is National Barbecue Month. And you could send notes that say, hey, kicking off the barbecue season, I just came across this great new barbecue sauce, thought you would enjoy it, and like send a link to their webpage or something. I'm not saying send to everybody barbecue sauce unless you have plenty of money and want to do that. That would be cool too. But finding reasons that aren't necessarily the traditional holidays.
I like that a lot. Yeah, just like do a Google search or find the Wikipedia page with all the weird obscure holidays, so that way you stand out. You're not fighting for all the other stuff in the junk mail. And you're making me remember about something I heard years and years ago about a guy where he would buy a blank calendar, and then whenever he'd meet someone, he'd write on that day of the calendar that he met them, and then the next year he'd go back to that calendar and then send things out saying it's the 1 year anniversary since we met. Fun stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's a fantastic idea. Love that too.
Well, cool. Well, you've got our the gears turning, and we got lots of ideas on what we can do better to attend more networking events, be better prepared. When we go there, we can be more strategic and get what we want, and then follow up afterwards. So that way, we're not just letting the event go to waste like a lot of people unfortunately do. And so I'm really curious now that we've heard about all this great stuff. What do you have for us? What kind of websites and books and offers and things do you have to share today?
Yeah. Well, I have a checklist of the five most common mistakes that quiet professionals make. And you can find that at ZenRabbit.com. And then I am in the process of finishing writing a book. So that will also be available at ZenRabbit.com when it's finished, probably around the beginning of the year.
Great. Do you know what the book is called yet, or what it's about?
It's about networking. It's actually focused specifically on what to do at events, how to break into a conversation, how to gracefully exit a conversation, a little bit more in depth about those questions that we talked about, how to how to present yourself, everything having to do with specifically at an event.
Well, great stuff. So now that we are better informed and we have some of these strategies, or we have some of these things ready to go in our back pocket, now maybe events don't have to be this awkward, waste of time, unknown, not having fun thing. And now we can go there intentionally and have some strategy and have some fun and talk to people and build that database and actually grow our business and have so much fun that we'll go to events again and again anytime that we need to just meet new people or get new clients or just get some kind of problem solved. Now events can be this thing, especially for quiet people, events can be this thing that we look forward to and we enjoy, as opposed to dread or maybe even feel a little bit of that missing out feeling when we let the fear get the best of us and we don't go. So this is great stuff, and everyone make sure to go to ZenRabbit.com to claim that checklist and to claim the book when it's ready. Maybe you're listening now and it's already ready. Well, the only way to find out is to go right now to ZenRabbit.com. That's ZenRabbit.com. Check out what Lori has for you there as far as getting the most out of these networking events. You'll be glad it did, and you'll be glad you did. Sorry, got ahead of myself there. And we'll see you over there at ZenRabbit.com. So thank you, and thanks, Lori, for stopping by and sharing some of this great stuff with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is Robert Plank, and would you like to be a guest on the program? Do you have an idea for a future episode, or do you just want to tell us how we're doing? Get in touch with us right now at marketeroftheday.com/ask to let us know.